Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon so we can talk some about this performance report. My name is Krista Thompson, and I will do the beginning presentation of our office hours, and then we'll open it up for questions. As Karen said, you can hit *9 if you'd like to ask a question on the phone. And then, of course, there's also chat available. Hopefully everyone on the phone is familiar with us, Chief Horseman Alliance, and we have 5 states that we cover. Here's our housekeeping stuff. I want to do a couple of polls so I can see where you are. So the first thing that I want to ask is, have you viewed your performance report already? Have you taken a look at that? So if you could just let us know, have you seen your report yet? And I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, a few of you have, and several of you have not. Good to know, and I hope you're not having trouble getting to those reports. If you are, you can always contact us or let us know in chat, and we'll be happy to help you with that. If you have not viewed your report, could you please tell us if you have your EIDM account? Because we know sometimes that can be a hurdle for practices, so we want to make sure that you have your EIDM account and are able to log on without any problem and be able to see your report. All right. I know at least some of you do. Okay, so let's get started. When you go to qpp.cms.gov and you use your EIDM account to log in to the portal, this is what you'll see. You can see on the left-hand side, you can choose performance report. This particular report is an example of what the reports do look like. I want to put out a disclaimer that these screenshots are from a demo that was provided. We do not have access to any live performance reports. That's only available to you all as a practice. So some things may not jive exactly. Some of the scores that you see may not completely make sense. It's not that they're incorrect scores, but they're demo scores. Also, it may not look exactly like your performance report because there are different scenarios for different practices. It could be that you're a solo practice, so you'll only see your information. It could be that you are part of an advanced payment model. So what you see today may not be exactly what you see on your particular report, but if you have any concerns about what you do see on your report, you can let us know in chat, or feel free to email us or give us a call, and we'll have that contact information for you as well. So you can review your performance report, and we'll go right into that. Now, on this particular performance report, this person is part of both an APM and a practice. So this gives us the ability to be able to see a little bit of what happens with both of these. And the next page you see as you click into it is your final score at a glance. Again, this could be an individual, it could be a practice, but you will see that here. And then as you go further into your report, you do see a list of the clinicians that are in that, and I will get to that page here in a few seconds. But we'll start with the quality measures. So this is the quality piece of what you look at for the first category. And it lists your measures here, and they're color-coded. So the low performance is red, medium is yellow, and high is green, of course. You can see your performance rate, and then what that translates into as a score. If you click over here on the right-hand side, then it opens up and gives you more information about what the benchmark is. And then what your score is. Also, if you can see, I know that it's hard to see these, but if you, and I hope that you all have pulled up your own, because I did send an email to suggest that you pull up your own so that you can click on these things. But on this particular screen, you can see this little blue dot here next to performance point. So if you mouse over that little blue dot, it gives you more information about the number of patients, so on and so forth, that are included within this particular measure. And again, you can see this blue radiated line over here gives you all each of the different percentiles. So for this particular one, they were in the 64.29%, which was actually below the benchmark data, which is why it is 3 points, the minimum points that you could get for this particular measure. Now, this is the advancing care piece. In the advancing care piece, you can see the total here. And again, this is just really very similar. You can see all of the different measures that you've reported on. And these are the base measures. There are measures, the green mark is a measure that is a yes or no measure. Then there are some, and this little tiny where my mouse is, this little tiny number tells you the number of points you got for this particular measure right here, providing patient access. And then at the very bottom of that, you can see what your total score is. So there's a base score of 50. So if you remember on the advancing care, which now is promoting interoperability, there were 5 base measures. So that's the 50 points. And there was an additional bonus of 35 points on this particular one. And it's 25% of the full score, so that comes out to 25% for this advancing care category here. Now there's additional registry bonus measures as well. So if you submitted those, and I know many within these states have been connected to the immunization registry. So if you did report the immunization registry, then you have bonus points of 5% on those registries. Now, if you did more than one registry, it still is a 5% for the two combined. And there's improvement activities, and we have a detail of all of the improvement activities that you have submitted, and it'll give you the check mark. And of course, it depends on the situation. If you're in a larger practice, then you would have had 4 that you would have reported. And if you are in a smaller practice, it would have been 2. Or if you do the high priority measures, then you could do enough high priority measures or a combination of the 2 to get the total number of points for the improvement activities. So those are the 3 categories that show the scoring. So it's pretty straightforward. or it seems pretty straightforward to me. Let me say that. And again, this may not be exactly what you're seeing on your particular report, but what I'd like to do is just take a second and see if anyone has any questions. I don't see any questions in the chat at this moment, but if there are any questions, please let us know.
Krista, we did have a hand raised at one point, but I put everybody back on mute. So if you want to speak up today during the call, please press *9.
Okay. All right. So I mentioned in the beginning, when you click to your final score, you'll see a list of clinicians there. Now, there is a possibility that you see clinicians there that are not currently with your practice, and that could be because it shows the MPIs that build to your TIN. Of course, this relates to groups, not to solo practices. But the MPIs that you see are the list of clinicians are the ones that build to your tax ID number between September 1st of 2015 through August 31st of 2017. So there could be a little difference in the clinicians that you see listed there, but it is based on that window of time. Also, during that final score, if you have reported as a group, that's the final score that goes across your entire group. Everyone will have a group score. And you can also see the details of each clinician and what they have. So I'm going to go on to the cost piece of it, and I know a lot of times there are questions about the cost piece because it's something that we're less familiar with. That's not one of the legacy programs that was reported on in the past. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what that's telling you and what information you can glean from that. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the two different pieces of the cost categories. The Medicare spending per beneficiary measure. And this is about Medicare services that are related to a hospital stay. Now, it's related, the number of cases that you would have to have at least a number of 200 cases to even have the Medicare spending per beneficiary counted. The hospitalist is going to probably have at least 200 cases. However, if you're a primary care practice, especially a solo provider, it's not likely that you will. So that isn't a piece that you would be concerned with. And then we have the total per capita cost measure, and this comes from all of the Medicare A and B costs during the performance period. And for this, beneficiaries are assigned to your tax ID number, and it depends on the level of primary care services that were provided to that beneficiary. So if whoever has provided the most primary care services, that's who the patient would be attributed to, unless they have not had primary care, and then it would be the specialist that would be assigned that patient. And so this is what you see about the cost details, and you can see the Medicare spending on beneficiaries at the top. In this particular situation, the average cost was $12,200, and based on the benchmark, that comes up with a measure score of 3.6. Again, for this year, it does not count, but it gives you an idea of where you are for next year and the goals that you can put forth for your practice. And then the total per capita for this one is 9,500. So if you click and you look for more information, you can see that there were 300 eligible cases, and the per episode was 700. The points for the benchmark was 3, and partial points was 0.6. Again, the gradiated line here gives you the percentile for the benchmark, so you can see that they are in this larger. And this is an inverse measure, so meaning that the less you want to have less. You want your spending to be less. So the more money you have, the smaller number of points you have. So that's Medicare spending per beneficiary. And then for those of you in primary care, this would be the one that you would look at a little more intensely. So in this particular case, this practice had a total per capita of 21,111, and it gave them 3 points. And we'll also talk a little bit about the things that you can do to bring your costs down, but this is what you're seeing on the cost piece of your performance report. And the last thing I want to mention, I do want to go back because there are a couple of other things that I passed up. So on the bottom of each page, it shows you where you can get direct technical assistance numbers and so on and so forth. And of course, you can always reach out to us, and we'll give you that one-on-one look at your practice in particular, and help you not only understand the report, but also what you can do for the next year. We also have a tool that you can use throughout the year to enter your data and kind of watch your scores. So that's helpful. And then on the right, you'll notice that you can request a targeted review. And so if there seems to be some anomalies or things that you're not agreeing with, you can put in a targeted review. One thing that's important to note is that you want to be sure if you are going to submit a targeted review, you want to submit that by September 30th. That's the deadline. There are several things that CMS is aware of. So some of these, we know some cases where it's showing providers being in an advanced payment model, and that is actually not the case. Usually that means that they're part of the TCPI initiative. So they are aware of that issue. There are also issues if you have submitted an advancing care information hardship. Some of those that are below the low volume threshold, which means they really even weren't required to report. It shows that they have a decrease in their reimbursement, which we know is not correct. Some disaster areas, we have a few disaster areas. So those are some things that they know that they've seen that are, those are like the top 4. So you might not necessarily want to do a targeted review right away. You can always reach out to us so that we can look at it with you to see if that's something that you really need, or maybe there's a misunderstanding of what's going on with that. But definitely, if you want to have CMS look at it and do a targeted review, be sure to submit that by September 30th. I also was remiss, and I apologize for that, in pointing out on this final score at a glance, it tells you, your scores for the categories, the 3 categories that count for this year. But also it shows you the payment adjustment, and for this one it's 0.04%. There have been questions about that. The payment adjustment does show the bonus, any kind of bonus that would have been involved. Now, across the board, the amount is low. You do receive bonus if you are over 70 points. And so some practices expected to see more. And the reason that it might look low is because this is the first year, so of course CMS is ramping up. And it is a balanced budget bonus and adjustment. And basically what that means is they're taking the pot from those that are receiving a decrease, and then of that pot they're spreading it out. And so another thing to be mindful of is the fact that because the threshold was so low, the 3 points, the participation was really high. It was 91%, which was really great participation in what we wanted to see. Okay, so let me check to see, are there any questions in chat, or has anyone raised their hand?
No hands raised at this time, but just a reminder to press *9 if you'd like to have your line taken off mute.
Thank you. Okay, some things that you might want to look at to improve your comp score. Of course, you want to look at your feedback report. Look at areas of any kind of weakness and places where you feel like you could improve. Again, feel free to reach out to us. We can help you look at those, and sometimes it can be, maybe issues with your EHR. A lot of times it's just a matter of workflow, so we can look at all those types of things. Have a really good awareness of your patient population and their needs. I think generally that's probably the case, but sometimes when you look at percentages, actually look at the data, I've seen practices be surprised at how many patients they may have with, I think generally diabetes is pretty high, but there could be cases, I don't know, I would say allergies, something like that, but once you see the data, it's interesting. It can be different than the perception that you have. Have an awareness of how patients are attributed to you, so the people that you see regularly for their chronic conditions are going to be attributed to you. You want to close the referral loop, and essentially what that means is if they go out to have their diabetic eye exam, that you make sure that you're able to get those reports back. Now, that's a challenge, definitely a challenge in practice, is because you have an elderly population that you're looking at. Sometimes they don't remember, or they think they've had the test, 2 months ago. It was actually 2 years ago. Time seems to pass more quickly the older that you get. So it is a challenge, but you want to do the very best that you can to close that loop. That helps you to know that they're doing those preventative things that they need to be doing. Focusing on annual wellness visits. The annual wellness visits are very good for the patient and good for the practice as well. It gives you a time when they're coming in and you can actually look at the whole picture of what's going on with that particular patient. It could be that you send them for tests and you find things you weren't even aware of. I've heard many stories about that happening. So it's that preventive piece. And, of course, the reimbursement on the wellness visits is better because there is a focus on the preventive piece. Not that you can get everyone in there, but definitely it's a good idea to try to persuade them to do that. It's better for them and better for the practice. It's good to have a care coordination manager. When you look at the cost, what we've found is when you're looking at your cost in your practice, your highest amount of money is going to be spent on those chronic conditions, and it's really about 5%, 5-10% of your patients are probably taking up about 80 or 90% of your cost. So if you can take that top 5 to 10%, those that you know you're spending a lot of time with, those that end up in the ER very often, those patients that you know are very chronically ill, if you have extra time that you can spend with them through a care manager and monitor their care, it does help to bring those costs down. And again, with a care manager, you have the chronic care reimbursement as well. So those are a few tips on things that you can do to improve your costs for. One little thing, I'll mention a couple of things that I've seen practices do, especially to pay attention to the ER visit. Because what you'll find is you probably have some frequent flyers to the ER. So if you are able to get your information, close that referral and get that information back from the ER, you can see, they'll be able to tell who the frequent flyers are. And so the education of that group and also the management of that group helps to bring that down. But what I've seen practices do is they print up a little business card that they can give to the patient. Again, this helps with the referral loop because essentially it has all of your contact information, and you tell them to show that little business card to whomever they go to see, whatever specialist they go to see, if they go to the ED, anyone that they see, they give that card to them so that they'll know to send the information back. So that's one little thing. And then just posters in the exam rooms that give scenarios where you just want to have a visit. It might be some things where there's a same-day visit, and then, of course, those things that you would actually want to go to the ED with. So those are a couple of ideas of things you can do for education and help keep them out of the ED, which can up your cost. So if you would like someone to contact you to go over your particular performance report, because, this is a high-level overview. There are a lot of particulars. There may be details that you need to know more about for your situation. You can enter your name and contact information and just send it to me in chat, or you can send it to everyone. That's fine. Anyone can call you then. Or email us, make an appointment at pegasus@qsource.org. We definitely want to make sure that you understand those performance reports. We can help you with those and make sure that your scores are even better next year. As Daniel has put in the chat, the highest positive payment adjustment for a score of 100 composite point for this year was 2.02% for 2017. We would expect that next year that will be higher because the participation may not be as high, or even if the participation is high, there might be a struggle for some practices to even be able to meet the benchmark, which means there's a larger pot for larger pot for distribution. We have some resources. There is a link within chat where you can get the presentation, and then we'll have all of these resources that you can go to. And one that's very important is the feedback report user guide. So that's a really nice guide. Goes into a little more detail. Again, this is a high-level overview. And then information about a targeted review and how you can submit that. And then some standard things. Oh, one thing I will bring to your attention is the EIDM user guide to help you in getting your account. I cannot stress enough how important it is. If you do not have your EIDM account, and I think most of you, if you submitted for 2017 or you looked at your performance report, you have your EIDM account and everything is in order. If you do not, you could be new to the practice or have new responsibilities. Please be sure to get that EIDM account right away. Some people waited until the last minute last year, and so it caused a bit of stress in those situations, and we do not want that. And then you also have an online learning network that CMS has made available. Lots of good things for you to go out there and take a look at. Here's some information, additional information on how to contact us. And we can also be reached through social media. And there's always little things that get, little tips and tidbits that we send out via social media, so follow up. All right, I do not see any questions in chat. I see that Privacy wants to remind us to update as changes occur. So, that's my handy-dandy presentation. Now, because this is an office hours, essentially what that means is the rest of the time, 28 minutes, is your time to ask us any questions that you have about NIPS in general or the advanced payment model. Anything that you would be interested in finding out, any questions that you have, any other suggestions you'd like, please let us know in the chat, or you can raise your hand. And Tabitha was clarifying when she said, remember to update any changes. So those are changes that occur within your practice throughout the year. Could be you need to update information on the NPES site for your clinician, anything that's related to your EIDM account. You want to make sure that you update any of those changes. All right. Do we have anyone that's raised their hand on the phone, Karen?
Not at this time, and just a reminder, *9 to raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and take you off mute.
Okay. All right. So, I do have someone that wants to be contacted, so we will definitely contact you within the next 24 hours and get something set up so we can make sure that you have all the information you need. You definitely want to do that. Again, I'd like to mention that we have our QPP Navigator that's powered by VizNet. It's a really nice tool, especially to keep up with your scoring, but also a pretty nice to-do list. You can submit your data through there as well. So because you'll be entering data throughout the year, at the end, you can submit your data. So the promoting interoperability, which you'll remember was advancing care, and before that meaningful use, and the improvement activity can be submitted at no cost, and then the quality will be sent, and the fee for that is $75 per clinician, which is significantly less than other registries. You may have, I know with some specialties, there are specialty registries out there, so you might have that. Some EHRs have their own registries, and of course you can also submit data on qpp.cms.gov. And then finally, you have the option to go through our QPP Navigator. So I'd like to recommend that everyone contact us and get set up with the QPP Navigator to help you keep on track throughout the year. One thing that we find is practices, I'm very guilty of this myself, tend to procrastinate. It's one of my best features. It's my procrastination. So if you're keeping up, throughout the year, a lot less stress at the end of the year. And thank you, Jean. I do want to mention we have these office hours calls every month on the fourth Wednesday of the month. It's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time. And on the next office hours, we'll be discussing quality measures in depth. So please do join us for that. Because the quality measures, that's the category that is the biggest percentage of your scoring within it. So lots of good information there. And again, that's an area where we really do want to spend time with you and help you to boost up those scores. So feel free to contact us about that. But there will be some good information next month on the fourth Wednesday, which I believe is the 22nd. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the 22nd, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central. All right, that's it for me. So I will be here to answer any questions if you have any. If you don't, you're free to go. I'm going to hold you here. We do appreciate your time this afternoon. Well, I guess I should ask if any of the panelists have anything that they'd like to mention that could be helpful.
Hey, Krista. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Daniel. One interesting thing that we did just find out from CMS was that there's not going to be a QRUR available for 2017, so you're not going to get that granular detail on your cost information that we've had in the past. But they did say that they were expecting or talking about doing one for 2018. So
yeah.
Up.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because when I heard that just about 2 hours ago, I was thinking, oh yeah, I do want to mention that. So thank you, Daniel. That is essentially what that means is, you got a little bit of information about your cost category on this performance report, but you'll have a lot more information next year. So thank you, Daniel. I'd forgotten. I wanted to mention that. Now, if you're sitting there and you're being shy because you have a question, please do go right ahead. I do the same thing, so no judgment.
Yes, this is Ron Jackson. I'll just follow up on what was just said about the report. Just make sure that anything that's on the current report that you don't see on the new feedback reports, either call the QPP help desk and make what you really used on the old reports that you would like to see on the new reports. As often as you can point that out, it's just a more of a chance that that'll get added going forward. But if it's taken off and if you're using it and no one's mentioning it, it's less likely that you'll see it going forward. And you may see it, but then again you may not. But if enough people point out something that's being used, it'll have a greater chance of reappearing on the new feedback report.
Thank you, Ron. And so everyone knows, Ron is with CMS. So we appreciate your input. And I will just give a plug for everyone that we work with on the CMS team. And if you go to some of their webinars, they really do want your input. So please let them know. And they're always very appreciative. Hey, Chris, this is Margie. I've gotten a couple of questions in chat that were sent privately, so I thought I would just read them out to you, and maybe somebody on the panel you could answer them. One of them is, I'm a physical therapist, and I wasn't required to report in 2017, and I know I don't receive a payment adjustment, but can I still view my performance feedback? That is a good question, and I will leave it up to one of the panelists. Maybe one of the panelists we haven't heard from yet.
Hey, Kristen, Marcy, this is Don. So just to be clear, for physical therapists, if they did submit data, even though they're not eligible for an adjustment, their data should be on the feedback report, as I understand it. I'm not actually seeing that case yet, though. If someone's seen it, I'd appreciate their feedback as well.
And so as long as you have an EIDM account, if you log in there, you should see your performance score. Thank you, Margaret.
And I have a hand raised. So a caller from 423 area code. Your line is being taken off mute.
Hey, Karen, this is Eric Irvin. Sorry for the confusion. I was just trying to figure out how to get in to speak up and just put my agreement behind the concept that, yes, you can get in there and log into the QPP portal and view your performance feedback.
Thank you, Eric. Margie, did you have other questions? Hold on, let me scroll back up a little bit here. I think we might have a few more. Another question was, the old feedback reports gave me lots of information about patient payments related to my cost measures. How do I find more details related to the cost measures like they had in the older reports? I guess the question is addressing the QRURs versus what we have now. And I think Ron kind of sort of addressed part of that with his suggestion that you call CMS and let them know which pieces of the QRUR were very helpful to you. Yes, and as Daniel said, there will not be a QRUR. So it is fairly general information, and then next year, when it is counting, there will be more in-depth information. Anything from any of the other panelists on that question? Nope. Okay. Margie, were there any others?
I found one more. I work for an internal medicine group that is part of an ACO, and I logged into the portal but couldn't view any of the performance details that were shown in this presentation. Do you know why or how I can find these details? So this is somebody that's a part of an ACO.
All right. I do know that you will not see details on some of the information because it gets sent to the ACO itself. And in past years, it generally comes out in August. So that information will come from a different group, but your ACO should be able to, or your ACO will have the information. As to the exact date that they will get the information, I'm not certain, but you can definitely contact them and you should see all the information about your scoring. Now, I will put this out to the panel because I believe that they would be able to see their advancing care information. Is that not, have you not seen that?
Krista, this is Margie. I have not actually seen a feedback report for an ACO with my own eyes. What I've heard is what they do see is very limited. So it's good enough that they can go back to their ACO management company to get that data later.
Yeah, so that is one of the, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are different scenarios, and that's one of the ones that there definitely is a difference, and I do know that information, a lot of that information does come from the ACO itself. Actually, there's a lot of detailed information that the ACO gets back from CMS. I believe they should be able to see their ACI, so if you have contact information, Margie, we have worked closely with one of the ACOs in Tennessee, so we can get with them to see what they're looking at and help them get the information. If they're seeing a difference from, now it could be that there are additional differences with that particular ACO, but we can check into it. So if you have their contact information, let them know. We'll get back with them.
Okay, will do.
Did anyone else get any questions that came directly to them?
Hey, Krista, this is Eric. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I was going to address that last one. I think from my understanding experience of going in there at the APM level, they see the entity scoring, but they don't see the measure-specific details. So they can see what the performance score is within a particular category, but they don't see the individual measure-specific stuff like you can on the other non-APM performance feedback reports where you can click in and see the measured details and the bonus points and all the stuff you went into. That's the kind of detailed information that if they're trying to see something beyond just the APM entity level, then I think that's where they would have to route their information or questions to the entity itself. Try to get more detailed reports.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, I don't have anything else. Last chance. Does anyone have any questions, any hands raised, anything the panel would like to bring up?
No hands raised, Krista.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. We do very much appreciate it. Please do reach out to us. We definitely want to work with you. It is our goal to have you all be successful. And I was thinking everyone knew this, but just in case, our assistance is at no cost to you. CMS is very generously taking care of that. So any help that you need, there is no cost to you. Reach out to us. And thank you again for your time this afternoon.